And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials.
A member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room.
Representative Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality.
Biden asking "Where's Jackie?" about a woman who had died last month is more evidence of his mental decline. His press secretary tries to cover for him by gaslighting everyone. Gaslighting is psychological manipulation to try to make someone question their perception of reality. The White House press secretary is trying to manipulate others into thinking they are crazy or unreasonable for questioning what is obviously questionable and wrong. I'll show you all the reporters at the press conference who tried to get her to address Biden's mistake, as she acts like it wasn't a mistake.
Florida. That is the focus, and that's going to continue to be the focus these next couple of days.
One quick final one. Sure. What happened in the hunger event today? The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room.
So the president was, as you all know, you guys were watching today's event, a very important event on food insecurity. The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work. He had already planned to welcome the Congresswoman's family to the White House on Friday. There will be a bill signing in her honor this coming Friday. So, of course, she was on his mind. She was of top of mind for the president. He very much looks forward to discussing her remarkable legacy of public service with them when he sees her family this coming Friday.
He said, "Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here."
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind. This wasn't what we were able to witness today, and what the president was able to lift up in this at this conference, at this event, was how her focus on wanting to deal with, combat food insecurity in America. And this is something that he was lifting up and honoring. And again, he knows that he's going to see her family this coming Friday. There's a bill signing that's going to happen in renaming a VA clinic in Indiana after the late Congresswoman. He knows that he is going to see her family, and she was at top of mind.
And just one more quick follow-up, because I'm trying to get my head around the response. If the late Congresswoman was top of mind for the president and her family was expected to be here, and that's what he was thinking about, why was he looking for? I'm not trying to be snarky here.
No, I mean, and I'm...
What we're saying and what he said there.
And again, I think people can understand. I think the American people out there who, watch the briefing from time to time, maybe at this moment, will understand when someone is at top of mind.
If you get sick of listening to this dishonest bitch's top of mind shit, check out the previous video on this channel. It's called "Russian Diplomat Reveals Critical Facts Mainstream Media is Neglecting to Tell You."
And this was such an important event. When we're talking about hunger, when we're talking about food insecurity, when we're talking about these champions, these congressional champions who were in the room, who have worked in a bipartisan way. We don't talk much about bipartisan actions that we see in Congress at this time. And as he was naming folks, she was on top of mind, and he understands and knew that he was going to see her family on Friday for this bill signing. Again, I don't think it's all that unusual to have someone top of mind, especially as there's a big event, two big events today and also Friday that is going to occur. And so he's going to see her family. They're going to honor her. They're going to celebrate her, and he will do a bill signing for this really critical, let's not forget, this critical, important issue for millions and millions of Americans across the country.
Good, Steve.
I'm sorry to have to do this, but I'm compelled to ask you to go one more time back to the question about Congresswoman Walorski.
I'm not sure why. Why? Why one more time?
Frankly, honestly, I think the memory of the Congresswoman and history requires some clarity here. Can you explain where the mistake was made? Was the president confused? Was something written in the teleprompter that he didn't recognize? Can you just help us understand what happened?
I mean, you're jumping to a lot of conclusions. No, but you're. But
what happened here.
I hear you, Stephen. I'm answering the question. That you're jumping to a lot of conclusions. I just answered the question. If that had been the case, I would have stated that, right? I would clearly have stated what you just laid out. What I had said is that she was on top of mind, and that he is going to see her family in just 2 days' time on Friday to honor her work, to honor her legacy, if you will. I've just mentioned this. It's going to be a renaming of a VA clinic in Indiana in her name, and that is what he was thinking of. He was thinking about her as he was naming out and calling out the congressional champions on this issue, on this really critical issue that's going to help millions of Americans, and that is what the president was focused on.
Would you be prepared to release the prepared remarks the president had in teleprompter just so we can understand?
I'm not understanding why that would be necessary. We always share the remarks that the president had, even delivered. That's probably going to be up on the website. Not really sure what that has to do with anything. I just answered the question about her being on top of mind. I don't think that's unusual. I feel like many of us have gone through that particular time where someone is on top of mind and you call them out. And you mentioned them, especially in this type of context. If you think about how he's going to see the family in 2 days, if you think about how when he sees them in 2 days, it's going to be for such an important moment, signing a piece of legislation that's going to rename a VA clinic in her state, that's important. If you think about this issue and how important this issue is, and he was, again, calling out the congressional champions for this particular issue.
Let me ask you something else. The president.
Actually, I just wanted to return to this question of the Congresswoman, and I think we all totally get why she's top of mind. You've made that case pretty effectively. But I think the confusing part is why, if she and the family is top of mind, does the president think that she's living and in the room?
I don't find that confusing. I mean, I think many people can speak to sometimes when you have someone top of mind, they're top of mind, exactly that. And it is also, if you put it into the context, it's not like it happened outside of context, right? It happened at an event where we were calling out the champions, congressional champions in particular, of this issue, this important issue when it comes to food insecurity, something that this administration has led on from the beginning of this administration, not just across the country, but also globally. You heard him talk about food insecurity last week at the UN and the investments that we have put forward as the United States of America in helping deal with that. Look, he was at an event you all saw, you all watched, which is why you're asking the question, right? Where he was calling out, again, congressional leaders, a bipartisan leadership that we have seen on this particular issue. And again, he's going to see her family in just 2 days. And she was on top of mind. I mean, that is not an unusual scenario there.
Karine, I have John Lennon top of mind just about every day, but I'm not looking around for him anywhere.
When you sign a bill for John Lennon as president, then we can have this conversation. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
The frequency, these moments of confusion are happening with increased frequency.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, there are
Americans
reports
are watching this and are having concerns. What do you say to that? This is a legitimate question. We need to have some answers.
At the end of the year. What can you tell us
I'm
about
sorry,
that?
somebody was yelling over you, so go ahead.
There are reports that Treasury Secretary Yellen is looking to leave.
It is not your turn to speak, and you're being rude to your colleagues, and let your colleague answer the question. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're yelling and over your colleague. So that is incredibly rude. So can you, go ahead. Go ahead.
There are reports that Treasury Secretary Yellen is looking to leave the administration at the end of the year. Just to try one more time, does the president believe that in his reference to the late Representative Jackie Walorski, who you have said from the podium numerous times he respects the work that she has done, he'll be meeting with her family to honor her work, does he believe he handled that reference appropriately, or is this something that he would like to get back?
Get what like to get back what?
He said, "Where is Jackie?"
Look, I know this is a question that many of you have had. I've answered it multiple times already in this room, and my answer is certainly not going to change. All of you may have views on how I'm answering it, but I am answering the question to the way that he saw it and the way that we see it. We have to remember as well is that this was an important event today. This was an event about food security. This was an event about how we're going to take the steps to get to eradicate hunger by 2030. And that is something that the president takes very personally. That is something that we would be doing this event that has not happened since President Nixon, right? That was 50 years ago that an event like this occurred at the White House. So clearly this is something that is important. Clearly this is something that he really honors, both Republican and Democratic congressional champions when it comes to this issue. Again, she was at the top of mind. He is going to be seeing her family in 2 days to honor her, to honor the work that she has done. And this was a remarkable legacy that she had, and we should be honoring that. I'm going to go to the back. Go ahead, Ellie in the back. Yeah, all right, thanks everybody. I'll see you on Friday. Thanks everybody.
And there she goes. Please leave a comment about what you think of her performance. And help boost this video by liking and sharing the video. Even subscribing helps. If you don't see the thumbnail to the video I recommended earlier, look for the link in the video description.